There's fear in the crypto markets right now. The US government is potentially facing a shutdown next week. What does this mean for Bitcoin and the altcoins and even the stock market? We'll take a look at how government shutdowns have impacted the markets before. We're also going to discuss whether this is a buy the dip opportunity or whether you should be fearful because this is going lower. Are we still in a bull market? These are all the questions we're going to be answering today. Okay, so come and jump in because we've got a lot to go through today. So welcome back to Prodigal Son Crypto with myself, Chris. As we can see, we've had a red week in the markets. Okay, Bitcoin down 5.5%, Ethereum down 10.5%, XRP down 6.69%, BNB down 8.79%, Solana down 16%. Okay, and you know it's red down across the board. Some of our other favorites, Chainlink down 11%, Hyperliquid down 16%, AVAX down 14%, Sui down 14%. It's been a bit of a bloodbath this week, that's fair to say. And for fear and greed, we've been deep in the fear this week. We haven't quite touched extreme fear yet. That is possibly coming. But we are in the later stages of a bull run, depending on which way you want to look at it. If you're saying that this is going to run into the end of the year, then potentially, we need to come out of the fear soon. If we are going to go into next year, then we could have a sizable correction that lasts a period of time. You have to be open to all these types of things. But I do believe that crypto is in a good position. A lot of things look healthy. There's a lot of positive signs for the upcoming months. So, you've got the altcoin ETFs coming. You've still got large whales and institutions buying, treasury companies setting up. There's a whole lot of buying going on, and there's a whole lot of on-ramps being set up for a mass retail bull market when the market is ready to do so. We have got a potential government shutdown next week, which I'm going to be covering a little bit later in this video, so make sure you stick around for that. Okay, so more on the fear and greed. So we haven't had this type of fear of 34 since back in April. Okay, so we had a little bit of fear back at 40. That was back in June. But the April dip was the last one where we got down into extreme fear. Do we get down into extreme fear? I'm not sure. We've had quite a sizable correction for Bitcoin already. Okay, and we're going to take a look at that in just a moment. And as you can see on Into the Cryptoverse, bull markets tend to spend a lot of time in greed and extreme greed. Okay, and this has been such a choppy bull market for Bitcoin. Okay, we've been into extreme greed a couple of times, and we've found ourselves back into fear or extreme fear. Okay, and this is sort of like repeating it again for like third or fourth time now. Whereas by now, in 2021, we was already like in extreme greed for a long time. So there is a chance we can get into extreme greed and stay there for a long time again. Okay, but we've just got to get out of this fear once more. And there's still so many positive things on the horizon. We've got altcoin ETFs coming only in a couple of weeks' time. So the SEC will decide on the first Solana ETF on October 16th. I've also seen that XRP is going to be on October 18th. So watch out for that mid-October period because, it's all going to be popping off for certain altcoins that are getting their ETFs, And when we look at Solana, I mean, it's quite healthy, Yeah, look, it's still above its 5 and 13 EMAs on the weekly. It's still an uptrend, It's got higher highs and higher lows. It's still a healthy market. Look how close we are, to breaking out of this huge cup and handle pattern. It's inevitable that this is probably going to do that. So yes, the federal government could shut down next week. A possible government shutdown is only days away as congressional lawmakers remain at odds over funding the government beyond September 30th. So the federal government could shut down next week, okay? Unless the Democrats and the Republicans can come to an agreement on some of the funding negotiations, they could shut down. And this has happened many times before. Each time has been different, but the impact from the markets is quite often similar. Okay, we'll show you in the chart in just a bit. We're going to show you how it's quite often a buy the dip opportunity, if you ask me. Okay, but first of all, let's hear what Trump's got to say on this.
The radical left Democrats want to shut it down. I mean, it's up to them. We have a great economy going. You saw the numbers yesterday. They're fantastic. The economy's doing well. Prices are down. We have virtually no inflation. Everything's going good. We're respected by every nation in the world. And you know what happened? The Democrats want to shut it down. And they want to shut it down because they want to give billions, ultimately trillions of dollars to illegal migrants, people that came into our country illegally. Some of those people are criminals, but they came into our country illegally, and they want to give them the essential over years, trillions of dollars, and our people aren't going to stand for it. They also want to have open borders. They want to have men and women's sports. They want to have transgender for everybody. These people are crazy, the Democrats. So if it has to shut down, it'll have to shut down.
So as we all know, Trump's a very determined man, and he usually does what he wants and gets what he wants in the end. And he's showing determination there that he's not going to back down to the Democrats. I mean, you know, you've heard his stance on the Democrats over and over again. He's not going to let them win on this, okay? But the chances of a shutdown are actually decreasing, because on Friday we was looking at above 80% chance. Now we're looking at a 63% chance according to Polymarket. So I'm not going to read this list out to you because we haven't got time for that. And also, you know, I don't want to get into all of these political affairs. Okay, but as you can see, major government shutdowns from 1976 to present. As you can see, most of them are September, October. Some of them lasting over a couple of weeks. Some of them lasting roughly around 2 weeks. Many in the 80s here were like a day or two, okay? And some of the more recent ones, okay, 1996 was a 21-day one, okay? And back in 2018, there was the 35-day one, okay? And we're going to have a look at what the impact of some of these were on the NASDAQ. So, okay, so we're going to work our way through the NASDAQ, okay? And we're going to go back to 2018 to 2019, okay? And here we go. All right. So as you can see, this was around December 2018 to January 2019. And as we can see, when this red box was when the shutdown happened. And as it started, the market bottomed, okay? While the shutdown was going on still for those 35 days that I mentioned, the market was climbing and recovering out of it. The move down had already started well before the shutdown, and the shutdown was the final point of it. It's kind of like a sell the rumor, buy the news. Not a buy the rumor, sell the news. It's the opposite, okay? And then we've got this other one. This one's a small one, you know. It was only for like a couple of days, okay? Absolutely no impact on the market whatsoever. That was back in January 2018. Okay, let's work our way back. Okay, here we go. We've got one here from 2013. Okay, and as we saw, okay, the market did drop into it. Okay, but by the time it was over, the markets were at new all-time highs, and that was while the government was still in shutdown. So, okay, so that was the one in October 2013, 1995. Okay. As we can see, when the government shut down, okay, it dropped further into it, okay, but while the government shutdown was going on, it found its bottom, and then afterwards was starting to recover again, okay, and again, going into new all-time highs. So had you been buying, you know, all right, you could have bought a little bit too early there and maybe seen a little bit more downside. But after that, we saw a continuation, okay? This is a daily chart as well, okay? So each candle's only a day, and then you didn't have long to wait, and you was back out into new all-time highs, okay? So there was a couple of shutdowns there as well. So it obviously shut down in November 95, okay? And then they couldn't resolve everything, so it shut down again in December. So that's always potential as well, and we saw that earlier on in the chart as well. Sometimes you can get a couple of shutdowns in a row, okay? So let's zoom out again and keep going back. Okay, here's another one. Okay, this is a short shutdown. Okay, back in 1990, but it literally almost called the low perfectly. Okay, it only went a little bit further. Well, it went down a little bit more, to be fair, but not long afterwards, it's bouncing back up again, and then you're heading for new all-time highs. And like I say, most of the move had already happened, so it was a sell the rumor, buy the news. Okay, there's another one back in 1987. No impact on the markets whatsoever. That was only shut down for a couple of days there. And, some of these ones that only shut down for a couple of days have just literally got no impact. Okay, so as we saw, some of the longer ones tend to be calling the lows. Okay, and then others literally have minimal impact on the markets. They're not even anything to concern yourself about. So when you start seeing all of these news pundits on, let's go back to that big ones again, some of them big ones. Yeah, look at this. Okay, so let's remind ourselves, 1995, yeah, would have been a great time to buy. Okay, 2013 would have been a great time to buy that dip there, wouldn't it? That would have been an opportunity. Okay, 19 would have been a great buy the dip opportunity. Okay, so if anything, I believe if we do get a proper shutdown and it becomes quite a big news event, probably a buy the dip opportunity. That's not financial advice, obviously. This is just me looking at the charts, seeing what I see, and we're just having a discussion about it, aren't we? So do your own research, make your own decisions, because I don't give financial advice on this channel. So there you see, government shutdowns. Are they anything to worry about? Probably not. Just a load of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. We call that FUD. Okay, so probably a buy the dip opportunity, not financial advice. Okay, and like I say, there's so many other bullish things going on, with rate cuts, more rate cuts coming, and altcoin ETFs. And I believe that ISM is going to go up next week, and we're going to discuss that further on in the video. And let's not forget, it's extremely likely we've got more interest rate cuts coming. And listen to Donald Trump talking about those rate cuts, and Jerome Powell in the White House with the All In Podcast besties, Chamath, David Sachs, and David Friedberg.
If you get rates down, which I think it'll start, too late is he'll afford
too late is not too good. Too late doesn't know what the hell he's doing. But
we talked about that
good old too
last
late.
week.
Oh, he's so bad. Yeah. It's so pathetic. But anyway, he's too late. He was always too late.
He was always too late.
But rates are coming down anyway. This is bigger than him. As crazy as it sounds, it's bigger than him and bigger than a stupid person running the Fed.
Yeah.
It's so big that, in fact, you see actually interest rates are starting to go down of their own volition. But if we would have had a little help from the Fed, the one thing that is slowed down because of him is housing.
Yeah.
And that'll catch up very quickly because it's the least of it. But this is just much bigger than really the Fed in the sense of having somebody that's incompetent running it.
Well, you mentioned, I remember this, I think it was like 2 months ago we had dinner, and you said you're very sensitive to the exchange rate. And it turns out that what you said actually happened, which is the exchange rate has completely stabilized. Despite all these other fluctuations, the dollar has held up.
The dollar's held up, and honestly, everything's held up.
It's really working.
No inflation. They said, tariffs will cause inflation. They've been wrong about everything. And
absolutely.
Well,
these guys, and for the most part, they've said, Trump was right because we've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars at levels that nobody's ever seen taken in.
Yeah.
And so we've taken in all this money and there's been no inflation.
It's just been hard, I think, for them to admit it because it's not that you were right, you were very right.
Yeah.
That's you know what I mean?
Well, even right after Liberation Day, remember they tried to create this panic in the market. The market went down because they created so much fear. You called them panicking, and you were right. It all bounced back.
No, there's a tweet. You called the absolute bottom. You posted on Truth Social, this is a great day. It was literally the bottom. And it's gone straight. It's up 35%.
Right. I said start invest. This is a great day to invest.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I hope a lot of people followed it. A lot of people did, I guess, because you see what's happening in the market. No, it's been a great thing to watch. They had 71 economists, and they put me in that group. And myself and one other person were right. Everyone else was wrong. But it's even more than anyone ever thought.
But when you posted that, were you thinking something or were you seeing something?
No, I just felt it was low. Yeah. I just felt it was low. I mean, it's more instinct, I think, than maybe anything else. Certain amount of brain power, but instinct maybe is more important in some cases. But I've had an instinct, and my instinct has been for a long time, this is what the country has to do. You know, this is what happened to us. Other countries were doing this to us. But we are in a position where we can do it better, much better. Nobody is able to do what I'm doing now with this. So the tariffs are a big part. I think the spirit's a big part. We have great spirit.
So despite what you think of Donald Trump, you know, whatever your political views are, if you're based in the US, okay, or even wherever you are in the world, okay, he has been right about a lot of things, okay. Like he said, he did call the market bottom there, you know, quite comically, you know, he called it. And he was right about tariffs. He didn't think that tariffs were going to cause inflation. The Fed were holding back on cutting rates for months because they thought that tariffs were going to cause higher, extremely high inflation, and they didn't want to be cutting with the rest of the world. Most of the world is in a cutting cycle right now. You have to realize that. And America are behind. That's why they call Jerome too late, because other countries have been cutting and America have been holding back from cutting because of this fear, uncertainty, and doubt around tariffs. And look what it did to the markets when the tariffs were announced. The markets went down for quite a while, okay, and then they've recovered, okay. But yet the Fed holding back from cutting interest rates has kind of suppressed most of the markets, apart from big assets that, you know, that you can't stop them. You know, Bitcoin, the S&P 500, Mag 7. And the Nasdaq, okay, but most lower cap stocks and lower cap cryptos and other avenues of business have been held back because of the rate cuts. And here we can see on the Fed Watch tool, okay, target rate probabilities for 29th of October 2025 Fed meeting, okay, there's an 87.7% chance we're going to get another 25 basis point cut. Okay, and there's a 12.3% chance that we're going to get a pause. Okay, so it's looking very likely we're going to see further cuts here, and you can also see that on Polymarket. Okay, on Polymarket we have a 81% chance of a 25 basis point cut. Okay, we've actually got a 3.6% chance of a 50 basis point cut. I don't think we want to be seeing 50 basis point cuts because it shows that the Fed believes there's significant risk to the economy if they're going to be cutting that fast. Okay, so what we want is slow, continuous, gradual cuts. Okay, I know you will hear Donald Trump saying no, cut 50 basis points and everything like that, but I think that would cause some instability. Okay, so yeah, 25 basis point cut is looking on the cards for the end of October as well. And if you remember in my last video, I showed you the inverse correlation that Bitcoin can have with gold. As we all know, gold's been on an absolute tear in the past week or so. Look, it's just it's made new all-time highs last week of 3,759. Okay, and you know it's when this pulls back, you know, significantly, Bitcoin will start its run. I believe Bitcoin will start its run. I believe Bitcoin dominance might go up a little bit temporarily, but once Bitcoin's made its move, then dominance will start falling and we will start to see more of an alt season taking place. I know the altcoin index was saying it was alt season temporarily just for a couple of days. Let's take a look at that now, actually. Yeah, so you see it's fighting with this 75 altcoin season level. Okay, it was alt season for literally a few days and then it dropped down. Okay, it even showed a scan wick the other day. I don't know if anyone saw that. It was saying that it had gone to 100. It was alt season at the 100 level. It must have been some sort of misprint because it's been removed now. And then after that, we've seen a drop back down to 63. And yeah, it's fighting to try and get back up there again. So let's keep our eyes on that. I do want to highlight as well how Bitcoin dominance has gone up in the last week, but it's really struggling to get above the 59% level. Okay, so it's met the 50-day EMA and it looks like it might have even found it as resistance here. So I'll zoom in a little bit closer so you can see that. Look, it's come right into it and tapped it perfectly, okay? And it's moved away down to the downside. What we want to see is start to see these 5 and 13-day EMAs rolling over, and then we might start to see, it break this 57.5% level, which we've been waiting for. And Titan of Crypto here showing Bitcoin's volatility contraction. During the last 2 contractions, the Bollinger Bands, BTC crossed below the centerline first, then ranged for a while before launching a massive rally upward. We could be witnessing the same setup unfolding. Okay, so could we get a little dip into the government shutdown if it takes place next week? Okay, it will come into the lower part of the Bollinger Bands, and then we start to see them move away. Okay, we are in a bull market, so we should be expecting that the probability is higher that after this move we see upside rather than further downside. Okay, and like I say, each time the Bollinger Bands have got tight like this before, and it's starting to do that again, we see an upward move. Okay, so the probability of this playing out is actually quite high, despite what any bears tell you. And it's going to be an interesting week because on Tuesday we've got the JOLTS job openings, you've got the non-farm employment change, and then and unemployment claims, and there's lots coming out. But one of the ones I'm really looking forward to this week will be on Wednesday, which is the ISM manufacturing PMI. The ISM is so important; it's so cyclical. When we start to see movement to the upside on the ISM, which I'll show you the ISM now. Okay, so the ISM is currently sitting at 48.7. Okay, it was at 48 the month previous. Okay, we're waiting for it to get above 50 because in all these times, cyclically, okay, look, this was March 21, right? That was a euphoric moment of the last bull cycle, okay? And here, February 2018, okay, all of this late part of 2017 was a huge and epic bull market, okay? And, you go back to 2014, you can go back further than that, okay? And the lows quite often call, bearish times as well. I mean, this one was like 2020, just after the COVID announcement. And, these were bear markets, okay? And look, we're still in bear market territory, okay? I know you've seen the Mag 7 flying, AI stocks been doing well. Certain cryptos have done well. Bitcoin's obviously being heavily accumulated, okay? But even Ethereum has not broken all-time highs yet, okay? And I believe when this starts going up, we will really see the alt season pick up. And here's Jerome Powell talking about it now.
Why is Bitcoin sort of not wildly off to the races yet? And it's this chart. Bitcoin is basically, this is a detrended Bitcoin, and it's basically the ISM, which is the business cycle. Remember, we've always said it's the business cycle stupid. It is always the business cycle stupid. And all of these people who claim it's the 4-year cycle based around this and that, they don't understand the fundamental of what the business cycle is, why there's a 4-year cycle in everything. And we've explained it, and we'll go through it in great detail tomorrow in our Everything Code presentation. But basically, it's following the ISM. And rates have been following the same pattern. You see, rates should have come lower. They need to come lower because we need to roll the debt. We've talked about this. That's part of the Everything Code, fundamental part. And ISM, because rates are so high, has meant that Main Street has been screwed while Wall Street's made money from debasement. Earnings versus scarce assets. This is the issue that they need to solve, and they need to get rates lower. They get rates lower. Why? Why do we have an elongated business cycle that looks like virtually no other other time? It's because, and I only just found this out redoing the work on the Everything Code recently, is that in 2021-22, they actually extended the maturity of the debt from 4 years to 5 years. So that extension of the maturity of debt has pushed out the business cycle a year. The 4-year cycle this time around is a 5-year cycle. We don't know what the next one will be until we see where they all end up getting refinanced, whether it comes back to 4 because they managed to get some stuff at the long end, or whether they shorten it because everything's in the short end. We don't know yet. But this one is a 5-year cycle. And this is what it looks like. The 5.4-year sine curve, 5.4 years is the exact average weighted maturity of the debt. And it tells us the ISM should peak by 2026. We think liquidity probably peaks before that, as the rate of change of ISM changes and the rate of change of liquidity changes. Our best guess remains well into 2026, probably Q2.
There you see Raoul Powell talking about the cycle being extended out into 2026, and that's entirely possible. And some people would say that is that throwing the 4-year cycle in the bin? No, it's not really, because I think too many people get too fixated on cycles playing out exactly to that year or to certain dates. Okay, I mean, when you see people counting days of cycles, it's relevant. It's something to keep an eye on, because lots of things do often repeat. They don't repeat, but they often rhyme. But it doesn't mean that a cycle can't get extended out by 6 months or finish 6 months early. It's still a 4-year cycle there or thereabouts. If 4 years is the average, that's right. It's like the 18.6-year real estate cycle. I've looked back at times in the past where it's been 20, 21 years, or it's been 18 or 17 years, 19 years. It can be varied, okay? So let's not fixate ourselves too much on precise timing. Let's just watch certain charts playing out. The ISM, I believe, is going to go up. Okay, where does it end? Does it end early next year, or does it end, later on into next year? I don't know. Or does it just shoot up in the next few months, okay, and find a peak? It's entirely possible. All of those things are possible. But I believe what we're waiting for, the ISM to go up, then we can start seeing movement in the altcoins, Bitcoin dominance dropping further, the dollar dropping further, and then we can start getting into that time where we're taking our profits. And, if it keeps going, we've still left some in the market and we can skim as it goes up. This is what my plan is anyway. So I hope you can join me on that one. And you're going to see all these types of posts online, okay? You've got BTC saw outflows last week of 897 million. Ethereum lost 795 million, okay? But some of these things are so short term, and I believe the ETFs quite often sell the lows and they buy the highs. I've seen that quite a lot, okay? You've got Bitmine have added another 264,000 Ethereum this week. They now hold 2.42 million ETH worth 9.72 billion. So this is like long-term holding. They're accumulating, okay? Big institutions are accumulating. So do you want to swim with the whales, or do you want to swim with the little fish selling off their little bags? Okay, you've got Rex Osprey just bought 52,000 Solana worth over 10.5 million. Okay, so whales are accumulating, like big institutional companies are accumulating Solana. So if you go over to CoinGlass, you will see over the latter parts of last week, there were some outflows, okay, for Bitcoin, okay? But if you scroll down to the total, look how big these numbers are, in comparison to these outflows. And I believe the ETFs sell the lows and buy the highs. You can see this as well on the exchange balances on the major exchanges, such as Coinbase, Binance, etc., okay? So the balance on their exchanges is the number of Bitcoin that they're holding, okay? And look, 30-day change, okay? Outflows, okay? And this is outflows to hardware wallets, cold storage, okay? People are moving thousands of Bitcoin off of the exchanges, okay? And I'm going to show you that in some more charts, so keep watching, okay? This is Bitcoin, okay? So in the run up to, the 2019, 2020, okay, supply was coming onto exchanges. Miners were putting onto exchanges. People, OGs who've been in Bitcoin since the early days were selling their Bitcoin. Okay. And what we started to see at the end of the last cycle, was a change in hands started to happen. Okay. So lots of Bitcoin came onto the exchanges. Okay. And over the last few years, okay, we're seeing a steady decline of Bitcoin on exchanges. and I believe we're going to see more and more of that. Okay, right. One of the big problems in 2021, this was like when 2021, 2022, when the market started to turn. Okay, miners were selling their Bitcoin. Okay, what you can see down here, just above my head here, is miners are actually buying Bitcoin, removing it from exchanges. Okay, they're not net inflows to exchanges; they're net outflows to miners. Okay, so not only are they mining, they're actually accumulating Bitcoin as well. Okay, so that's a really strong signal to hold your Bitcoin. Okay, and if Bitcoin's going to do well, I don't believe the cycle ends with Bitcoin dominance at the highs. I believe it ends with dominance at the lows. That means that standard thing will happen, that altcoins will outperform Bitcoin. Not every altcoin, not it has to have strong fundamentals, strong use case, a great user experience, and lots of users using it and getting lots of volume, lots of network activity. If your chains that you're holding doing those things, they're probably going to outperform Bitcoin at some stage of the cycle. Will they outperform Bitcoin for long extended periods? I don't know. It might just be a short period, a short window of alt season. But I believe that Bitcoin dominance will probably go down to around 40%. And this chart shows the net transfers of Bitcoin, okay, to exchanges, or the number of transfers, whether they're more inflows or more outflows. And as you could see, okay, these cycle tops showed net inflows, okay. And at the moment, we have been now since roughly 2024, we've been seeing net outflows from exchanges. There is a potential that we're still just getting started, okay? The $9 trillion Vanguard is exploring offering Bitcoin and crypto ETF access to its US brokerage clients. I mean, Vanguard is a huge name, okay? And it's still not offering those services. There's so much money that can still come to this space. You know, you've got the pension funds and the 401ks, and you've got huge investment companies that have been holding back. They haven't taken the leap like BlackRock has. You know, they're going to follow behind. There's so much. There's literally trillions of dollars that can flow into this space. So you know, this is not no time to be bearish. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video. As we covered, the US government shutdowns, probably nothing to worry about. Probably a buy the dip opportunity if you've still got some dry powder. Not financial advice, obviously. And, you know, Bitcoin and Ethereum and other assets that are starting to get ETFs will be heavily accumulated by big institutions. Do you want to follow the institutions, or do you want to follow the noise that's on, you know, X and in the comments of YouTube, where people are being bearish, you know, trying to call cycle tops, trying to, you know, they don't know what they're talking about. Okay, you know, you've got things in economics that look brilliant. Okay, the ISM's, I think it's going up. Whether it goes up soon or later, it's going up at some point. It's the longest it's ever been done at a level. It's so cyclical, and the markets will follow it. Okay, got Bitcoin dominance in a downtrend. You know, it's going to happen. You know, all of the assets classes. Okay, you've got the stock market, Bitcoin, Ethereum, you know, all in weekly uptrends above their 5 and 13 EMAs, above their 50-week EMAs and 21-week EMAs, you know, and they're in uptrends, solid uptrends, okay? And you've got USDT dominance still in a downtrend, regardless of whatever bounce it's happening. DXY still in a downtrend, okay? So you've got technicals, you've got economics, okay, with the rate cuts coming, you know, and the ISM, and got fundamentals where the crypto space, you know, most people are not even talking about the technology capability. That all comes when the prices start going up. When you start seeing the numbers going up, you see everyone start talking about the fundamentals of crypto again, capabilities of brand new technology. Okay, and you know, everyone will start to get bullish again, and it will happen soon. Okay, so if you like this video, don't forget to click like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.